I was expecting a couple hundred, but 3 will do. But it will be interesting for all of you, because I tell you what, we never learnt this at school, and the reason why we never learnt this at school is because tablets here, they were discovered by a British explorer called in northern Iraq, a place called Mosul, Nineveh, and they didn't know how to decipher the text, and they actually lay buried in the Berlin Museum right up until the end of the war, and then they were taken out of the Berlin Museum, they were brought back to England, some were taken to America and stuff like that, and then some people got to work on trying to work out this language, which is the most ancient language there is. It's an ancient cuneiform text, and they've deciphered them pretty well.
Can I actually ask questions while you come?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah.
Because
I'm it's just curious. Far away. No, honestly.
It's just that how did anyone know what that says?
Well, you know,
because obviously if it's the ancient one and no one speaks that anymore, it's kind of hard to
develop. They found a stone. Napoleon found it. It's called the Rosetta Stone, and it had 3 or 4 different languages on it, and the most recent language was Greek, and it said the same thing, so they could decipher one language to the other, which went right back to the ancient Aramaic, which is pretty close to this. So it pretty much comes from this language, and that's how they slowly. Well, I mean, I'm no expert on deciphering languages, but some people are. You know, they know how to break codes and how to work things out. And like I said, it's down to this Rosetta Stone that they can go right back and decipher these ancient languages. See the map here. Okay. There's Egypt here. There's the Nile, Red Sea. The pyramids are here. Over here. This is Zuma. Over here. This is Urdu and Ur. This would be like Baghdad around here. Okay. And the other bit that I was talking about, Nineveh, is up here. Which is where they found the clay tablets there. And there was another explorer who that was in 1922 to 1934, was an archaeologist called Leonard Woolley. He's the guy that discovered this and what was inside it. And you can see there, it's one of the first places the Americans went to on the occupation of Iraq. They went straight to this building because Saddam Hussein had actually renovated it, set up his headquarters in there, and he was taking stuff from the bottom, which people thought or speculate to be lost technologies. That's what he was getting out of there. So this is occupied. You can't go and visit it. No one can go there. The Americans have been there for 10 years. They're still there now. Yeah. And also one of the other places, the first place they went into was Baghdad. They went straight for Baghdad. They didn't go to any military bases. They went straight to the Baghdad Museum, and the Republican Guard was guarding the museum. They used tanks and everything, big holes in the museum. They went straight in there, they went downstairs into the basement, they took everything out. So these were their targets.
3 off the table.
These were their targets. So, I mean, that's pretty interesting to think that after the invasion of Baghdad, which was like a couple of weeks, they basically stayed there for 10 years and they're still there now because they're looking for stuff, they found stuff. And before the Americans were there, the Nazis were there. They were looking for stuff too. You know, so going on to the Sumerian texts that have been translated, what I'm going to do is, it'd be much easier for me to show you the video.
Mars is a better candidate for life during the early part of the solar system. Mars rocks are coming here all the time, and these have been knocked off Mars by asteroid and comet impacts. And we know that they could convey any Martian microorganisms to Earth. In August 1996, a team of scientists made a stunning announcement. A Martian meteorite found in Antarctica contained evidence of fossilized life. The 4-pound rock, designated ALH 84001, showed the presence of carbonate globules excreted by microbes when they were alive on Mars 3.6 billion years ago. Earth was no longer alone. Life had existed elsewhere in the universe. So this cross-contamination between Mars and Earth, which 20 years ago was regarded as a rather wild conjecture, is now pretty much accepted by the astrobiology community.
So basically what they found out is that life didn't originate on planet Earth, it originated out there in the universe somewhere, and they know that the building blocks of life float round the amino acids, everything that gets carried by comets and asteroids, and it's deposited from one planet to another. So it's possible that the same species could arise on different planets, different solar systems, and look the same, or be really, really similar, because they now know that life begins somewhere in the universe and it goes all over the place, which is pretty interesting.
Technologists studying the origin and evolution of life in the universe embraced the possibility that life on Earth began in outer space. Did modern-day scientists finally prove what ancient cultures have believed for centuries?
The common myth or idea that the origins of humankind is from the stars is widespread. Ancient cultures had the ancient Egyptians, the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Indians, and so forth. Is intriguing, and it's probably true. And I mean it from an astrophysical point of view. We do come from the stars. It's a fact that life on Earth has been seeded by the coming of a comet containing the life matter.
Searching for clues is incredibly difficult. Fortunately, sometimes the clues come to us. In 1969, a 220-pound meteorite crashed in Murchison, Australia. The Murchison meteorite was more than just a piece of rock floating through space. It was a doorway to alien life. A piece of the meteorite is kept here at the California Academy of Sciences.
And the reason this is so exciting to scientists is that it's as old as the solar system, and yet we found that it contains the building blocks of life, things like amino acids and other sorts of chemicals that we use to make our own bodies and all life on Earth. So what it shows is that these building blocks were around in our solar system before life arose on Earth.
So that's a pretty interesting find, and that's scientific fact that this asteroid is older than the solar system, with the building blocks of life on it, you know, and our solar system is one of the newest solar systems in our galaxy, and our galaxy is one of the newest galaxies in the universe. It's not an old one, you know, we're all pretty new, and when it comes to humans, we've only been here on this planet, 1,000 humans, nothing compared to what's been here before. So we'll carry on with this.
Life may have come to Earth in a meteorite like this, and life similar to ours may be spread through the universe in the same way, as meteorites act like seeds, raining down the ingredients for life on fertile planets.
Okay, so this is basically you see this in the Natural History Museum. So you've got this is your evolutionary chart. You basically got ape, and then a man. Yeah. So all these lot share something in common. This one doesn't. This one just popped out of nowhere, and obviously there's the missing link that they keep talking about, you know. But it would need to be about 30 missing links, not just one, you know, to get modern man. And what they've discovered recently, some of the genealogists, especially a guy called Francis Crick, who was the guy who discovered the DNA helix, the co-discoverer. There's a gene in the human DNA strand called HAR1. Okay, now none of these lot have this, so that means it hasn't evolved from anywhere. It hasn't gone through the evolutionary process and then suddenly popped up into man, fully developed. It's nowhere to be found before man. It's just in modern humans. And that HAR1 gene gives us our brain size. So I'm just going to play the video.
In 2006, genetic researchers at the University of California at Santa Cruz discovered an area of the genome they called HAR1 that appears to be unique to humans. Scientists believe the HAR1 gene plays a critical role in the advanced development of the human brain and is a key element that sets us apart from other animals. But where did it come from? Did humans develop this distinct gene naturally through evolution? Or did it land here from another planet? Francis Crick, the British scientist who helped discover the structure of DNA, believed that human genes could not have evolved by chance.
Crick didn't feel in that period of roughly 600 million years from the formation of the planet down to the time when the planet could first support life, there was enough time for DNA to evolve by accident. It's an enormously complicated molecule. Crick gave this analogy. You would be more likely to assemble a fully functioning and flying jumbo jet by passing a hurricane through a junkyard than you would be to assemble the DNA molecule by chance in any kind of primeval soup in 500 or 600 million years. It's just not possible.
Perhaps further evidence can be found in the...
Right, so that's all the scientific explanations, and this bit is what I was telling you about earlier about the Sumerian texts, the Sumerian tablets, and when they decipher them. And this is Nineveh here in northern Iraq. Okay, and the more they decipher about the tablets, the more they find out it's true. You know, they can relate it to stuff they already know, and these guys knew about it thousands and thousands of years ago. You know, it's incredible. So basically, what the Sumerian tablets say is there was a race of humans called the Annunaki, and their planet was dying, and they needed gold to put in the atmosphere. This is the direct translation from the tablets. So they came to planet Earth to mine gold, and when they were on planet Earth, it was pretty difficult. There was 60 of them that come over at first, it said, and they needed to create a slave race, a worker people, and that's basically modern humans. So they created modern humans, and that's when you look in the Bible, it says stuff like, and then God created man in his own image according to his likeness. That's what it is. These guys were revered as gods. They actually put kingships into place as well, because they didn't want to be seen by the humans. They wanted humans to rule humans and them take a back seat. They were never sort of you couldn't get to meet with them too often. You know, they didn't want to be noticed. And it's very, very complex what happened, the process, what happened, because if you can imagine, you've come from somewhere else, and it's actually interesting because everything in the Bible is reflected from these ancient Sumerian texts, and it's just been misinterpreted, you know, misinterpreted as fiction, but it's actually has a basis in fact, you know. So I'm going to play this so you get a little bit more about it, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Archaeological remnants and eyewitness accounts from man's earliest known civilization.
Oh, I've got the scripture.
Northern Iraq. Along the east bank of the Tigris River, opposite the city of Mosul, lie the ruins of the ancient city of Nineveh, a place originally inhabited by the Sumerians of Mesopotamia. Here, in 1842, British archaeologist Austin Henry Layard unearthed the ruins of the Great Library of Ashurbanipal, a royal archive containing thousands of clay tablets with cuneiform inscriptions. Dating to 3000 BC, the messages carved into stone are considered to be the world's first written accounts.
Sumerian tablets are probably one of the oldest form of written record that we have. They've been translated, and they tell exciting stories about how gods intermingled with human beings and actually had a hand in the creation of human beings. Whether or not it's just mythology, or if it's fact, no one really knows.
According to interpretations of the Sumerian tablets, the gods were called the Anunnaki.
What we're looking at here is a Sumerian tablet that actually shows the Tree of Life, flanked by divine beings. You can see here the Anunnaki on each side. We also see the winged disc, a symbolic reference that the Anunnaki had the power of flight. They actually had necklaces with astronomical references, a moon, a star, various symbols, which even could be symbolized as a wristwatch, technology being used 6,000 years ago.
The written accounts etched into stone suggest the Anunnaki were giant beings, standing 8 feet tall, who came to Earth in search of gold for their home planet.
When the Sumerian gods, the Anunnaki, realized the toll it was taking to mine the gold themselves, they decided to fashion a worker being, a slave to mine the gold for them. And they explain in the Sumerian creation tales that this was an arduous process. So it's very possible that our genetic evolution was a process done by the Anunnaki to create us in their image and after their likeness.
They created man according to the Sumerian text. They created Adam and Eve. How interesting that the Bible will echo the story.
Right, what's interesting about that is Adam and Eve, as you read in the Bible, the Sumerians called first man Adamu. So it's been taken from there. Like I said, everything you find in these Sumerian texts, someone's taken it and they put it into the Bible, the Old Testament. You know, the flood story about Noah, that's actually the Epic of Gilgamesh. That's exactly the same thing, except the guy was called Utnapishtim instead of Noah. You know, so this is a story that goes back really, really far. And like you said, the Bible just echoes something that's happened a lot longer before.
But talk about it in terms of God.
It's almost like these highly advanced creatures were acting as teachers. And certainly Sumerian culture and mythology is full of stories of, receiving visitations from these mysterious higher entities that, bestowed wisdom and fantastic ideas and concepts. And, you have to wonder, is this just down to myth, or was somebody coming down and really trying to give us a push?
4,000 miles west of China, another tale of celestial beings influencing civilization can be found, this time in what is now modern-day Iraq. The Babylonian legend of Enuma Elish dates back to the 7th century BC. The text was first discovered in 1849 by British archaeologist Sir Austin Henry Layard while searching the ruins of the library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh. The story tells of how the first humans were created by an extraterrestrial race known as the Anunnaki.
In the ancient texts of Sumeria, we have descriptions of these beings descending from the sky called the Anunnaki. The term Anunnaki means those who from the heavens came. It says, word for word, that these beings descended in flying vehicles from the sky. And we can find not only descriptions of the Anunnaki, but also depictions. And we can see them in statues, in carvings. So it's all very interesting to see that those beings looked like modern-day space travelers with weird suits. Some of them wore wristwatches, they had boots on, and helmets, and above all, wings. And they were always described or depicted in floating above some quote-unquote regular people. So the question is, who were the Anunnaki? And according to the ancient astronaut hypothesis, they were space travelers who visited Earth in the remote
Perhaps
past.
clues may be found among ancient Mesopotamian artifacts. The National Museum of Iraq. In 1938, the museum director discovers terracotta pots and copper cylinders in the archives that may have been used as galvanic cells. The nearly 2,000-year-old devices, called Baghdad batteries, are believed to predate the invention of the cell battery by more than 1,000 years.
Now what I think this is, that's not the actual battery. I think that was a remake that they made 1,000 years ago, or thousands of years ago, from what they read. They actually put together. I think the original batteries were much more sophisticated, but it was written down how to make them, and I think they tried to make them, and that's what they did. These clay pots were like a remake of something that was much, much older.
Archaeologists speculate they may have been used to electroplate gold onto silver for decorative jewelry.
The Baghdad battery that we've currently found in Iraq, about a dozen of them, it can generate around 4 volts. Now, a current modern-day flashlight could be run by a 9-volt battery. So if we think of a Baghdad battery around this size generating 4 volts, what if we increase the size to around 6 feet? That might generate 20, 30, 50 volts and have the sufficient power to actually utilize energy in a way that we do today.
Mainstream scientists agree that the Baghdad battery is evidence ancient man had the means to create power and the understanding of how to apply it. But is there proof of even more complex devices that may have run on electricity? Engineer Chris Dunn.
Right, so going back to when you set up any civilization, to run that civilization, to run that place, you need power. Yeah. So in all these ancient structures, every single one, they've not found any evidence of soot marks. So they didn't have torches in there to light up. In the Great Pyramid, there was no torch marks. There's no soot on the ceilings. There's nothing. So what the Egyptologists think is they use mirrors, sunlight and stuff like that, which is just a load of rubbish. It doesn't work, and they thought it were copper mirrors, which is they've tried it. You can't light up anything with them. So they must have had some sort of power, and as you can see by that Baghdad battery, they knew how to get power, and this is thousands of years old. And like I said, I think that battery is just a remake of something much, much older and much more sophisticated. This guy here, called Chris Dunn, he's an engineer. He's studied the Great Pyramid, and he's actually come up with the most logical solution to what the Great Pyramid was used for when it was in its heyday. It was never a tomb. They never found any mummies in them. They never found a mummy in any tombs. The Valley of the Kings, which is miles away, that's where all the people were buried. But the pyramids was something completely different. And he's come up with a really good, interesting theory that the pyramid was actually a power plant. And if you look, like I showed you on the map, where Egypt was, you see Zuma right there. They were all pretty close, all these areas. Lebanon as well. Where they have Baalbek, which is a massive stone trilithon platforms. They would have needed a power plant. So we'll listen to what he has to say.
Believes the answer can be found by further examination of the shafts in what some call the Queen's Chamber, where traces of zinc and hydrochloric acid have been discovered.
I believe the chemical coming in through the northern shaft was hydrated zinc, and the other chemical coming through the southern shaft and into the chamber was dilute hydrochloric acid. These are actually seen on the chamber walls.
Dunn suggests that the two chemicals were poured down through the shafts and then mixed together inside the Queen's Chamber, triggering combustion.
This vessel represents the Queen's Chamber. Into the tubes we're going to pour hydrated zinc and then hydrochloric acid. When you bring these two liquids together, then a chemical reaction occurs, and a product of that chemical reaction is hydrogen. And you can see the vapor, the hydrogen, escaping through the chimney, and there you have the reaction.
Dunn speculates that the hydrogen gas traveled from the Queen's chamber into the King's chamber. Then, the vibrations from the subterranean pool energized the hydrogen atoms into a microwave energy beam.
The evidence that indicates the use of hydrogen can be found in the King's chamber. There is a shaft in the King's chamber has dimensions of 8.4 by 4.8, which would be suitable for a waveguide for a maser, or microwave amplification through stimulated emission radiation. And from there, we can actually propose many different ideas of what they did with it.
Might the Great Pyramid of Giza actually have created power in the remote past? And is it possible that energy ran the advanced tools of early builders?
So here's a chart of going back to earlier. This is a Neanderthal man, and all these types of humans existed at the same time apparently. Then you've got here, which would be like modern man here, and then you've got Cro-Magnon, which were massive. That's actually a conservative size for Cro-Magnon. They were anything from 7 feet to 9 feet tall. Could that be the Anunnaki? I don't know. But these skeletons, they found them. They know. They know these guys existed. They were massive. They were really huge. It would look something like this. Cro-Magnon compared to a modern man. That's unbelievable, isn't it?
You didn't sign him up for
yeah. yeah. Breeding, and obviously because in the Bible it says, and when the sons of God got unto the daughters of man, they took them for their wives. So if you can imagine, you've come from another planet, you're here, you're mining, you're doing work, you've got no females with you. The only females are the human females. Eventually you're going to take one as your wife, which is what they did. And then they created a different race, you know, which I think was probably the Cro-Magnon, which they created. And then when you talk about the gods wiping everyone out, I think they found out what had happened on there, and then they decided just to wipe everything clean, which is the Great Flood story, just and start again.
So if they genetically modified us, how did they come into being?
How did, see, you know what? Yeah, exactly. But how did the universe start? It just goes back and back and back, doesn't it? You know, what you've got to think about is the universe is 12 to 14 billion years old. Our solar system's like 5 billion, something like that, and the Earth's like 4.2, something like that. I mean, it's massive. You've got so much time for other things to happen. Like you watched the bit with the asteroid. These building blocks of life have been around since the beginning of the universe. So the Earth is a relatively new planet, you know. There's this guy here. He's called Dr. Stephen Greer. He was a surgeon, and he got passionate about the subject and stuff like that. And he was in a quite high position. He gave up being a doctor, and he started a program called the Disclosure Project, where he basically got people that were working for black projects and stuff like that were sworn to secrecy. You know, for 30 years you can't talk about it, you can't do this, you can't do that for 30 years or 50 years. And he's got them all to come forward and speak about what's been going on, you know. And it's massive now. And if you look it up, the Disclosure Project, you can read up a lot about it. And what they found out is basically the universe is teeming with life. It's all over the place. And so is the galaxy, teeming with life. They think one of the people he's interviewed, who's a NASA scientist, said we've been visited by 57 different species, you know, on this planet. And you know, we've always been visited. 2 different skulls here. So we've got a Neanderthal skull here, and this is a Cro-Magnon skull right next to that. Let me find the human one. Okay, so we got this is like an ape skull This is like a Neanderthal skull, and that's like a modern human skull. And the difference is the dermal ridge here, and also the brain size. The modern humans are completely different to these two here. And that's a Cro-Magnon skull. So you can imagine skin on that and muscles, be a pretty scary looking guy, wouldn't it? You know, I mean, he looks tough, doesn't he? And imagine that 7 to 9 foot tall. You wouldn't want to mess around with him. Compare that to what we are, human skull. A lot more delicate. You can see that other skull was a lot more robust, a lot stronger, you know, and we're a lot more delicate. This is one of the blocks cut from out of a mountain of granite. It's in Lebanon, in a place called Baalbek, which is called the Temple of Jupiter, because the Romans built on top of it, because obviously they like the look of it. Massive, massive. They can't move these things. There's not a crane in the world that can move this. This weighs 1,400 tons. There we go. So that's this is Baalbek, the Temple of Jupiter. This is one of them stones that you saw lying down there. Massive. That's up there. You've got another one here. These were quarried from 300 miles away and then brought here, lifted up, hoisted up and put into place. See the little guy there? See the size of that thing? 1,400 tons estimated. Like I said, there's nothing we've got today that can move it. Absolutely nothing. I'm just going to show you. This is a Sumerian tablet here. This is one of the clay tablets that they've got, and that's our solar system. How did they know about this? This thing's over 6,000 years old that they found. It has the solar system with a few extra planets. Obviously some of the planets have been destroyed by now, but that's it. It's on there. And for them to know that the sun was in the middle, when you think about a couple hundred years ago, people were thinking the earth was flat, you know, and people were getting killed for saying that it wasn't, you know, but these guys knew. They knew all about it. If you look here, it's another Sumerian tablet. So these would be the humans here, and this would be one of the Anunnaki. Look at the size difference. So they basically created something a lot smaller than them that they could control and get down into the mines. Here we have another tablet again. 1, 2 standing here. There's the solar system there. If you see, this person stands up. He's pretty big. Now, what's really interesting is some of these NASA scientists and especially astronauts, they know all about this. And one in particular is Buzz Aldrin, and there's a few videos of him saying some stuff. You know, he just wanted to try and get it over to you without saying so many words, but it's quite interesting. Let me find it here.
We aliens who happened to go down the ladder on July 20th, 1969, we aliens were certainly part of a magnificent race.
Trying to tell us something? You know, he knows. He knows, because I'll tell you what happened when they went to the moon. The moon landings were faked, but what happened was they were supposed to land somewhere in the Sea of Tranquility, and they missed the landing spot, so they landed somewhere else instead. And they weren't supposed to land there, but they did. And when they got out, they found ruins on the moon, ancient structures, buildings that had been abandoned, and they were told not to go there by mission control, go back the other way, carry on with their mission to collect rocks and stuff like that. of
Mission
course,
Control knew about it.
well, they knew about the buildings there, but they told them to go the other way. And there is some closed channel recordings that actually you can hear them talking about this, saying, go back the other way, go back the other way. We know about this. And these astronauts are going, wow, this is amazing, this is incredible, I never thought this would be here, you know, stuff like that. Then they panicked, and they said, right, Bravo Tango, you can hear that, release Jezebel. Jezebel is basically the code word for release the fake moon landings to the TV. Because they had all that prepared before, and they had it prepared for two reasons: just in case this happened, or just in case something went wrong, you know. So they could say, we did land on the moon, but the guys died on the way back. So that, you know, because they wanted to beat the Russians. So they had that in place. They faked the moon landing just in case they never got there, so they could say they did, and just in case something like this happened. And that's why these guys never went on another mission again. Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong were not used again for another moon mission after that, because they disobeyed the orders. And if you listen to
oh boy, it's really something really fantastic here. You couldn't even imagine this.
Alright guys, listen.
Oh boy,
this is the closed channel.
Oh boy, it's really something really fantastic here. You couldn't even imagine this. Roger, we know about that. And you go the other way. Go back the other way. Wow, that's kind of rich. Pretty spectacular. My God. What is that there?
Habitation on the moon. We can visit other people with their habitation. We can keep track. If there's something very important to be developed from the moon, I'm not sure what it is right now. And I sure think we should identify what it is for America to make such gross expenditures again for human habitation on the moon. We can help. We can join with. Together, we can explore the moon and develop the moon. We should go boldly where man has not gone before. Fly by the comets, visit asteroids, visit the moon of Mars. There's a monolith there, a very unusual structure on this little potato-shaped object that goes around Mars once in 7 hours. When people find out about that.
Hear what he said there? This, and I'll show you this now. What he's talking about there is this monolith, and this is basically the Russians launched two satellites called Phobos 1 and Phobos 2. Something happened to Phobos 1, no one knows, it just disappeared. Phobos 2, before it got destroyed by something, took some photos, and it took some photos of right, so that's the monolith, that's Phobos, that's the moon of Mars. This thing's 27 miles long and probably about 3 miles wide. No one knows what it is. The Russians kept it quiet for a long time before they released the photo. When they did get some photos of the moon, the surface of Mars, they found this. This is a shadow on the surface. When they put all the photos together, they found that this monolith was casting a shadow, and this thing's moving across the surface, and it's huge. Like I said, it's 27 miles long. It's massive. And it destroyed two satellites, basically, the Phobos 1 and Phobos 2. So something didn't want it. They didn't want to be seen by something, you know. It destroyed the Russian satellites. What's even more interesting is this here. This here is Voyager 1 and 2. They've made by NASA, and Voyager was launched in the 60s, 70s to explore the solar system and beyond. And what's really, really interesting is on Voyager, Carl Sagan put this disc on. This disc is supposed to be indestructible, made from certain type of alloys. It has greetings from all languages. It's got the sounds of the planets on. This is on this spacecraft that they've launched out into space. Do you want to guess what the first language is on there when you play it? Sumerian. Ancient Sumerian. That's the first language. Now, why would they choose that? it's not been spoken for over 6,000 years, but it's the first language on here because they pretty much got a good idea that what's been written about has actually happened in the past, so they're not taking any chances, they're sticking it on there. Yeah, so this is on the spacecraft that's gone out of our solar system now, both of them have, with obviously the ancient Sumerian language as the first language on there. This here is a gold trinket, thousands of years old, found in Peru, in South America. What they did is they scaled this up, made a 1/16th model of it, and it flies. It flies really well. They put it in a wind tunnel, works perfectly. They've made little model planes of it, so this is fascinating as well. They found something similar in an Egyptian temple as well. It flies also. This here is from the ancient Sanskrit text, Indian, the Vedic scriptures, which are really old as well, and it's basically a flying machine called a Vimana, which is what they wrote about, and that's the drawing of it in these ancient texts. This is our solar system, and this is supposed to be the orbit of this planet X, which is where the Anunnaki is supposed to come from. This comes round into our solar system every 36,000 years. It's on an elliptical orbit. There's another theory as well that it's not a planet, it's a red dwarf, and it has its own solar system. And the solar system comes into our solar system every 36,000 years. And it's supposed to have 7 planets, of which one of them is where the Anunnaki from. So 2 different theories there. Here we got the Anunnaki and the human slaves. I'm just going to show you. You listen to the astronauts speaking. This is a closed circuit.
Volvieron a SOS por minutos.
Just going to get it to the point.
Dejaron perplejos a los técnicos de Houston.
We have some explanation for that. We have none. Don't worry. Continue your program. Oh boy, it's really something that was fantastic here. You couldn't ever imagine this.
That's puzzling.
Roger, we know about that. And you go the other way. Go back the other way. Well, this guy Rich pretty spectacular. My God, what is that there? That's what is that? Don't tango.
Origin falls outside the realm of social acceptability. What would happen to our culture if we were to discover that we, as a race, are no more than the result of a genetic experiment conducted by a superior life?
Over the course of the 20th century, we have witnessed exponential advancements in the collective knowledge of mankind. In every field of science and technology, our achievements are no longer measured in centuries or decades, but in years and even months. With this extraordinary growth, mankind has surpassed every achievement recorded throughout the millennia of known civilization. But what if the breakthroughs of today concerning humanity, the earth, and our beginnings are not new wisdom at all? What if much of this supposed recent knowledge lay secreted away in the ruins of a once powerful society, awaiting our discovery? Could this alleged new knowledge, uncovered in Earth's little corner of the universe, be considered Genesis revisited? This is the belief of the world-renowned archaeologist, linguist, and expert in the field of cultural anthropology, Zecharia Sitchin.
I'm Zecharia Sitchin. I devoted a lifetime to the study of ancient civilizations, ancient languages, their art, their beliefs, and the knowledge that they had. And the question is, when you study, when you look at all that, is it myth, is it mythology, or did it really happen? I believe it all really happened.
In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
That's Ronald Reagan. That's one of his speeches.
Space is the inescapable challenge to all the advanced nations of the earth, and it will establish the United States as the preeminent spacefaring nation. First for the coming decade, for the 1990s, space station freedom, and next for the new century, back to the moon, back to the future, and this time back to stay. And then a journey into tomorrow, a journey to another planet, a manned mission to Mars.
A manned mission to Mars? An ambitious objective, and with the success of the Mars probes and NASA's rover, one that humanity has made substantial strides toward achieving. Could there have been a space base on Mars in antiquity?
If we had physical, tangible evidence of artifacts on Mars, we are not only not alone in the universe, but someone has been on the next planet over. That in itself will forever change our frame of reference.
Mankind came out of the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages, reached the Age of Enlightenment, experienced the Industrial Revolution, and entered the era of advanced technology, the era of genetic engineering, and the era of spaceflight.
Take shadow. Going forward, drift into the right a little. 30 seconds forward, drift. We copy you down, Eagle. The Eagle has landed.
Astronauts who land like eagles. Zecharia Sitchin's research reveals that in our ancient past there were advanced beings referred to as the Anunnaki, translated, those who from heaven to earth came.
The idea that there was in our solar system a race of intelligent beings far older than us who are now gone would certainly force us to rethink lots of questions, including the question of human origins. Where did we come from? Could we be the products of genetic engineering?
The hypothesis that modern science is only now catching up with ancient knowledge is inspiring scientists and researchers to increase efforts to rediscover that which may have been lost over time.
It rekindles a situation that has lain dormant almost 5,500 years, the incident of the Tower of Babel. In the Babylonian version of the biblical story, the people of Babylon were building a tower whose head shall reach the heaven, in which a Shem, a space rocket, was to be installed under the direction of their supreme god. But the other deities were not amused by this foray of mankind into the space age.
The biblical story recalls that Yahweh came down to see the city and the tower that the humans were building, and he said to his colleagues in Genesis chapter 11,
"This is just the beginning of their undertakings. From now on, anything that they shall scheme to do shall no longer be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so that they should not understand each other's speech."
Thanks to the science of archaeology, experts now know that the first great civilization emerged almost 6,000 years ago. Older than the Greeks, older than the Mayans, older than the Incas. The people of this society were called Sumerians, after their land, Sumer, in the great plain between the Euphrates and Tigris rivers, today's Iraq. The book of Genesis calls the land Shinar. For generations, biblical scholars either ignore biblical references to ancient kingdoms or categorize these as legend or lore. Through the study of historical relics and the translation of ancient languages, many biblical researchers now believe that the previously questioned Old Testament references are indeed historically authentic accounts of flourishing, advanced cultures.
If you study the Genesis document, God made Adam out of clay and then took Eve out of his rib, one of his ribs, etc. if you study this document, you discover that it's really a much shorter version of a much more complicated document that comes out of Babylonia and then out of Sumer and so on. Now, these ancient texts give a really complicated story of powerful, non-human, godlike beings actually engineering us, making us for specific purposes.
Zechariah Sitchin's investigation into these cultures brings him to this 6,000-year-old temple in an excavated area of the ancient city Erech. Until its discovery only 150 years ago, Erech was known only through passages in the Bible. The temple is dedicated to a female goddess named Inanni, also referred to in later times as Ishtar. Zechariah Sitchin.
You can see here her features a little damaged. Her divinity was marked by the pair of horns that she had. She held a jar with the water of life, and she was surrounded as a decoration, but perhaps also symbolically, with a symbol that some refer to as entwined snakes, which was the symbol of science in those days, 6,000 years ago. Some find in it a precursor of the Egyptian Ankh, which was the symbol of life and creation.
Further results of Mr. Sitchin's research affirm the theory that this visage of entwined snakes is the symbol for genetic manipulation of DNA. Carved out in stone over 6,000 years ago, Ishtar is sometimes depicted flying through the sky and leaving the Earth's atmosphere to traverse the heavens. In ancient Mesopotamia, the secrets of astronomy and other celestial knowledge are kept carefully guarded, studied behind closed doors by an exclusive society of priest astronomers. Cylinder seals like these are the only surviving record of these carefully guarded secrets. This clay tablet carries the print of a cylinder seal about 4,500 years old. It depicts the god Enlil granting the plow to humankind, ushering in the age of modern agriculture. On closer inspection, something completely remarkable can be seen. A detailed depiction of the complete solar system configured identically to that known to contemporary science. With the sun prominently figured in the center, each planet appears in its correct position and relative proportions to the other planetary bodies. On the outskirts is one additional planet, a 10th, not currently located by astronomers of our modern era. Astronomers around the world are on the lookout for this evasive celestial, as a growing body of physical evidence indicates that it does in fact exist.
History records the discovery of the planet Pluto as February 18, 1930, by astronomer Clyde Tombaugh. Yet, Pluto is clearly shown on the imprint taken from the Sumerian cylinder seal. There is also one additional planet, the one that scientists refer to as the mysterious planet X, the yet undiscovered most distant member of our solar system.
According to modern science, prior to the invention of the telescope in the 1600s, humanity had no knowledge of outlying planets beyond Jupiter, as these bodies cannot be viewed with the naked eye. Since the day of Galileo Galilei, optical astronomers have amassed an important body of knowledge about the outer planets. These theories established by astronomers from around the globe have been uncontested these last centuries. With the technological advancements of our day, new vantage points have developed, such as the unobstructed view of NASA's Hubble telescope and the perspective gained through unmanned probes sent on reconnaissance missions to the outer reaches of our solar system. These breakthroughs in space exploration reveal many inaccuracies in earlier astronomical conclusions. On August 19, 1977, the American space probe Voyager 2 leaves Cape Canaveral on a several-year journey to the vicinity of this solar system's most distant planets. The Voyager's discoveries challenge many of astronomy's recent conclusions, while fully corroborating ancient knowledge. For the first time, we see images of Uranus. Astonishing, it is exactly as the Sumerians report in their 6,000-year-old description. Though they have no telescopes that we know of, the Sumerians characterize Uranus as Mash Seek, translated bright greenish. They also explain the unique planetary tilt of Uranus. According to the Sumerians, our solar system was invaded by a planetary body that caused collisions and disrupted the existing order. NASA scientists concur that a collision with a body the size of Earth, traveling at 40,000 miles per hour, could have caused both the orbital skew of Uranus and the devastation apparent from the planet's surface scarring. Its neighbor Neptune was described as a blue-green planet by the Sumerians millennia ago, but science has only confirmed this fact during the past few decades. The Sumerians named and listed all of the planets in our solar system. Their documented list of these planets is tangible evidence that in at least one respect, modern man is on a path of rediscovery.
That ancient knowledge included the planets Uranus and Neptune, supposedly unknown until discovered in 1781 and 1846, and even Pluto, not discovered until 1930.
Neptune, Nudimmud, the artful creator. Uranus, Anu, he of the heavens. Saturn, Anshar, foremost of the heavens. Jupiter, Kishar, foremost of firm lands. The asteroid belt, Rakish, the hammered bracelet. Mars, Lamu, god of war. And Ki, Earth, what the Sumerians considered to be the seventh planet. Why the seventh planet? Why not the third, as Earth is so often referred to in modern parlance? Sumerian records indicate that they began their counting not from the sun, but from a planet on the outside of the solar system.
But most surprising was the inclusion of one more large planet as the 12th member of our solar system.
The launch of Pioneer 10 in 1972 ushers in the era of deep space exploration.
That's it. The rest of that video is just about what I told you about Phobos 1, Phobos 2 and the Russians. I showed you the pictures of it. That's just the best. The rest of that video is about that, but I just thought I'd let that play because this guy explains it a lot better than I can. But you can see everything that's written down, they've just corroborated it. It's this is written down thousands of years ago, and they've just recently proved that what was written down is correct. The size of the planet, they knew exactly what they were called, how big they were, what colour they were, and like you just said, we're the seventh planet in, not the third rock from the sun, so someone coming in from the outside of the solar system. And that about wraps up for today, guys.